In this video, I want to talk about loan amortization. This is going to work for a house or a car, anything like that. So let's go through a house example. And we'll take something very typical. We'll say that we have a house that costs $200,000. We put down 20%, which is 40 grand, which means we need to borrow $160,000 from the bank. Now the terms of this is going to be 30 years, 5% interest rate, which is a fixed interest rate. I want to determine two things. First, I want to show you how to determine the payment. So to determine the payment, we do something like this, and I'm going to draw out a timeline and have you take a look at what's going on and then show you the shorter way to do it using your calculator. But I think it's valuable to do the timeline every time so you get extremely comfortable with this stuff. So it's 30 years, 12 months in a year. You're going to have 360 payments. I don't know what those payments are going to be, so I'm just going to put P for payment. And the way this is structured, there's going to be no additional future value, so they're going to be all the payments with nothing big at the end. Remember, that's what your calculator wants to see, is a series of payments and annuity, and then say, is there any future value at the end? The value today, I'm going to make that negative $160,000 because you're borrowing $160,000 at that point. So here's how we can do this. I'm trying to find the payment. I need to know how many payments there are. There are 360. I need to know the interest rate. The interest rate is 5%, but this 5% is quoted annually. Just like I quote a speed limit, I say how fast were you going? I was going 80 and a 55. I know you meant 80 miles per hour. So when someone says the rate on your loan, the interest rate on your loan is 5%, they mean in annual terms. But for my calculator, I'm going to put that in monthly terms because they're monthly payments. The bottom line to that is the N and the I have to match. So if it's 360 months, then the interest rate is 5 divided by 12 per month. So you may want to, you don't have to write that out, but you may want to think that to yourself every time you do this. The present value is the amount that you borrow, 160,000. The future value is going to be 0. Now I made this negative. I'll make it negative here. You don't need to. So I want to tell you what your calculator will do. Now when you solve for payment, the payment is going to be 858.91. Now it will make this positive if you make the present value negative. It will make it negative if you make present value positive. In other words, the sign is a direction. So if you are paying 160 today, you get cash flows, you get payments in the future. If you receive 160 today, that would be positive, the payments would be negative. So try not to let what is somewhat a trivial thing like that mess you up too much. Okay, so now we figured out what the payments are. So let's see exactly what's going on here, and let me get rid of this real quick. I want to know where this number comes from, and I want to know where this number comes from. And what's going to happen is I owe $160,000, and my interest rate is 0.05 divided by 12. That is equal to 666.67. My total payment is $858.91, so the difference that goes to principal is a $192.25. So this is month 1. The next month I now owe $159,802.75. Why is that? Because I owed 160. I paid in principal $192.25. Now I owe this much. The ending balance at the end of July becomes my beginning balance at the beginning of August. And now my new interest payment is 0.05 divided by 12 times what I owe at this point, and that's going to be $665.87. So you see what's happening. The interest that I owe every time goes down a little bit, and the principal that I pay goes up a little bit. So now $858.91 minus $665.87, and these numbers are from Excel, so there's some rounding issues. That's why this doesn't add up perfectly every time. I'm just not showing any decimals past the penny. Don't let that bother you. So 858.91 minus 665.87 is 193.05. Subtract the 193.05 from this 159, and we now owe 159,614.70. And I hope at this point you're starting to see the pattern because this is going to take us a while if you don't. So the new interest I owe is the current balance times the interest rate, and it's going to be 665.06. And this is going to continue, and to fill this out, this goes down for 30 years, 360 payments, so it's going to take me forever to fill this out. That's why I'm doing this in Excel and showing you the outputs there. But I do have another question I want to ask. What happens when a year goes by? Can I determine how much I owe? So I buy this house today. Can I determine how much I owe in a year without doing all these numbers one at a time? Okay, so here's what's going on. We have, originally, we had 360 payments, and we found that the payment was $858.91. After a year goes by, we have a remainder of not 360 payments, but 360 minus 12, which we have 348 payments left. I know those payments are $858. I'm going to leave the penny off, just make it easier to write. So now I'm looking for the amount I owe. I'm looking for this present value portion. So what's happening, I owe the bank these future payments, and I say, well, what would the bank be happy with getting today? Where are they indifferent between? And the way I do that, I say my payment is equal to 858.91. The future value is 0. That's the cash flows. There are 348 left, so I have the size and timing of the cash flows. My interest rate is 5% divided by 12. The worse your credit score, the higher the rate, so that reflects your risk. I have the size, timing, and risk of the cash flows, and this should give me the value of those cash flows, which will be 157,639.42. So there are a couple of things going on here. To summarize, to do the loan amortization, you just walk through one at a time. Here's how much I owe, the rate, and this put it in monthly terms if it's monthly payments. The rate times how much I owe is the interest that I pay. I figured out my payment already, so payment minus interest is my principal, and that reduces the total amount I owe. So the amount I owe goes down every time. The payment's always the same. The interest that I'm paying goes down. The principal I'm paying goes up. And the second thing I want to know is, at some time in the future, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, how much do I owe on the house? And I don't want to do this step by step. I just do the second step right here. And that allows me with a car, house, or anything that's amortized like that to figure out what the payment is and how much I owe at some future point in time.